she's had at least 3 different phone numbers in the last almost 4 years that I've met her. And I know that she was on 2 different phone plans.
And she lived in 2 different places? Did you know her?
She's lived in...
Since she's been watching your child?
No, she's lived just in Orlando since I've met her. But she had just...
In the Andover Lakes. Was she watching your baby there?
Yeah.
With us tonight, a very special guest. Jesse Grund was accused of being the biological father of little Caylee. In fact, Mom Casey insisted he put his name on Caylee's birth certificate. He demanded a paternity test. With us tonight, his father, Richard Grund. Mr. Grund, how did your son react when he learned he was not the biological father?
Well, it was 8 weeks after Caylee was born, and by then he was emotionally vested. And while most guys would have been happy, he was emotionally devastated.
Who's the father?
What Casey told Jesse was that the father was a one-night stand who apparently a year later dies in some mysterious car accident. And so the answer to your question is nobody really knows except for Casey.
Do you buy that story?
About the one-night stand and the car accident? No, I don't.
What do you think?
I think it's somebody that she either doesn't want people to know or doesn't want that person to know that they're with a father.
Did your son have any idea she was having a relationship with somebody else at the same time she was with him?
That didn't happen until just at the end of their engagement, and he found that out after the fact. I kind of found it out on my own almost immediately. It didn't take much of an effort to go to her MySpace page and see comments from somebody else that were a little bit too affectionate, and then go to his page and see a comment that says, "It's official, I miss you," which 2 months before they break up. So it was kind of the beginning of the pattern. Casey always has the next person lined up before she moves on.
So she's always one step ahead of everybody.
It would seem that that's her pattern. As I was discussing with Mark, I think Casey lives in her own reality. And in that reality, it's almost like her own TV show. You know the movie The Truman Show, where everybody watched it and this guy was living a real life, but it was a fake life? I think that's Casey. And I think that's why we're not getting the answers that we want, because she's in her own reality.
Did she stay on good terms with Jesse?
After the breakup, they didn't talk for 10 months, which is understandable. But then Jesse kind of realized if I shut Casey out, I shut Caylee out. So they began to speak again. They began to become friends again. And then in November of '07, they tried to date again to see if maybe they could make it work, but it didn't.
When you first learned of little Caylee's disappearance, what did you believe happened?
I had 2 theories, which I shared with George Anthony, and I also shared with law enforcement, and also Leonard Padilla. My first theory was Casey seemed to be breaking ties with her mother. To do that, she needed her own financial source. She might have gotten involved in something that went bad, and they had taken the child. Or something happened by accident, and Casey cracked.
Casey cracked. But, you know, with your theories, how do you explain the saturated air of chloroform in the air of the trunk and the web searches on her computer for chloroform?
Well, what I think, and again, this is just my opinion and speculation, something happens to cause Casey's life to spiral out of control. I'm going to give away my age here, but when I was growing up, I used to watch Ed Sullivan. And there was this guy that had this act where he'd spin plates on a pole and then have to move to the next pole and go back to the first pole, and eventually all the plates would crash. Something happened in Casey's life to cause the plates to crash, because up till May and June of '08, her controlled mess of her life is running fine.
Isn't it true that your son agreed right up front to take a polygraph?
Yes. He's agreed with anything and everything law enforcement.
And he passed?
And asked to do. Yes, he did.
We are taking your calls live. With me is the family, the father of Jesse Grund, accused of being Caylee's biological father, to Abby in New York. Hi, Abby.
Hey, Nance, how you doing?
I'm good, dear. What's your question?
Well, I have a question that comes from me and my 3 granddaughters.
Okay.
Okay, we want to know about the script. Has anyone seen the script that she was supposedly given to tell the police for 30 days, and where is it?
straight out to Leonard Padilla, bounty hunter in Sacramento, California, who has become part of this case when he first put up the bond for Casey Anthony, $500,000. What about that script? You and your security team are familiar with one of the stories Casey Anthony told, that she was in J. Blanchard Park with Zenaida Gonzalez, the nanny, doesn't exist, and her sister Samantha, and they put Caylee in their car and said, here's a script for you to tell people about for 30 days after we have Caylee, and they left. What about the script? Anybody ever found the script?
If such a script exists, neither myself nor Rob Dick nor anybody in my group of people have seen it.
Let's unleash the lawyers. Joining us tonight, veteran trial lawyer, defense attorney Doug Burns out of New York. Christopher Amolsch joining us, veteran trial lawyer out of Washington, D.C. What about that? Don't you think that'll be a little problem for your client, Doug Burns, the script she claims the nanny gave her? Whoops, I guess the dog ate the homework.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. I mean, it's not only just the script. The whole series of statements that she's made amounts to what prosecutors are going to call consciousness of guilt. The only defense point at this point in the investigation, though, is they're really sort of between probable cause and beyond a reasonable doubt.
Christopher?
I agree with Doug. I mean, Doug's spot on. I mean, the longer she keeps talking, the more that comes out, the more lies that come out. They just don't have enough to charge her with right now, and I don't know if they ever are going to be honest with you.
I want to go back to Richard Grund, the father of Casey Anthony's ex-fiancée, Jessie Grund. Mr. Grund, do you believe there is any chance Caylee is still alive?
According to my beliefs, I walk by faith and not by sight. So until I know for sure, absolutely beyond a doubt, that Caylee is gone, then I will hold out to hope that she's going to come home.
You can't even bring yourself to say dead, the word dead, can you?
Well, again, in my opinion, Caylee's either going to come home or she's already gone home.
My one goal is, regardless of how it happens, like I said, I don't care. I will lie, I will steal, do whatever I can to find my daughter. I put that in my statement, and I mean that with all of my heart. Even with the boyfriend that Zenaida had last year, I saw him maybe twice. They only dated a couple months. It was never anything serious. She never had him around Caylee or the other children she babysat, so it was never an uncomfortable situation. But this is so heart-wrenching because there was never a sign, never a single sign that this was going to happen.
That is Mom Casey Anthony in new recordings released of the police interrogation of Casey Anthony. She's referring to what many people believe to be an imaginary nanny named Zenaida Gonzalez. Back to the father of Casey Anthony's ex-fiancée, Richard Grund, is with us. Did you ever know of this nanny, see her, talk to her, hear of her?
I never saw her or spoke to her, but I did hear of her. I heard of her in April of '06 when Casey lost her regular babysitter. As I said, Jessie would watch her. I would watch her. She tried to get my high school-age son to watch her, which meant I watched her because I have an office in my home. Finally, one day when Casey came home from work to wait for Jessie and to hang out with us, I kind of greeted her at the door with, what are we going to do about this babysitting thing? And she says, I found one. I have a nanny. Her name is Annie, and I got her from Jeffrey Hopkins, who has a son named...
but none of that is true. Jeffrey Hopkins says that's not true.